Hi everyone, I decided to do a video for the quiz review just because I know that this material is quite difficult and I wanted to be sure that we have a really good understanding of it. So whether you see that I posted it tonight or if you watch it a little bit before your quiz, it's just a refresher of what we went over in class on Monday to kind of give you an idea of what to expect for the quiz. So your quiz looks just like this, except I just kind of changed the numbers around. You have two questions where you're doing a sum and difference. So 1 and 2 are sum and difference, and then 3 and 4 are going to be double and half angle stuff. So let's look at number 1. So number 1 is a sum and difference problem. You're finding the exact value of an angle that's not on the unit circle. So with these problem types, you can either convert it to degrees, or you can find two numbers that are both reducible by 12 that add together to get you the 7 pi. So I'm going to set it up with both, and then I'm going to follow it through with the degree version because it seems like most of you are liking that better. So if you want to convert it to degrees, you're going to take whatever you were given, so 7 pi over 12, you're going to multiply it by 180 over pi. You can cancel the pi's and multiply, and this is going to give you 105. So your question is now the sine of 105 degrees. So you're looking for two different angles that you can add together that are on your unit circle that give you 105. So I think the ones that we used in class were 60 and 45. So that means that 60 is my x and 45 is y. It doesn't matter if you want to make x 45 and y 60, you're still going to get the same answer, okay? If you wanted to do it the other way, you would need to look for two numbers that are reducible by 12 that I can add together to get to 7. So 3 and 4 are reducible by 12, and 3 plus 4 gets me 7. So if I reduce these, I get pi over 4 and pi over 3. So this would be my x, and this would be my y. I'm going to follow this problem through with the 60 and the 45, but if you want to do it with the pi versions, then you can do that as well. So since the function that I'm looking for is sine, and I'm adding these together, on your formula sheet, you're going to look for the formula that's sine of x plus y. So you're going to have sine x, whoops, should be cosine. So you've got sine x, cosine y. I'm going to erase what's over here. Plus cosine x sine y. And I'm going to substitute my x is 60 and my y is 45. So you've got sine of 60, cosine of 45, cosine of 60, sine of 45. The way that you evaluate these is by looking at your unit circle. So the sine of 60 is root 3 over 2. Cosine of 45 is root 2 over 2. Cosine of 60 is 1/2. And sine of 45 is root 2 over 2. You're going to multiply these together straight across. Okay, so root 3 times root 2 gets you root 6. 2 times 2 gets you 4. 1 times root 2 is root 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So since they have the same denominator of a 4, you can write it as 1 fraction. And that's your answer. All of your answers for these questions are going to be similar in that they have a root 2, a root 6, and a 4. You just might find that they have some different kind of symbols in front of them, like a positive or a negative sign. So if you're doing this and you're like, I got 7 as an answer, you need to go back and check what you did. That's probably not correct, okay? All right, let's look at number 2. So number 2 is already in degrees, so you don't have to do any kind of converting. So I'm looking for two angles that I can either add or subtract from my circle to get me to 255. We can do 120 and 135. Okay, so the trig function that I'm looking for is cosine, and I'm adding these together. So you're going to look for your formula that has cosine and it has addition. So I'm doing cosine of x plus y. I'm going to let 120 be my x and 135 be my y, and I'm going to go through and replace those in my equation. Okay, and then you're going to use your unit circle to evaluate those points. So cosine of 120 is -1/2. Cosine of 135 is -√2/2. Sine of 120 is √3/2. And sine of 135 is √2/2. So when I multiply these together, the -1/2 and the -√2/2, when I multiply the negative and the negative, it becomes a positive √2/4. Bring down that minus sign, and then we have a √6/4, and then you just write it out as one fraction. And I've got my √2, my √6, and my 4, so I know that I'm probably going to get the majority of the credit. The only thing I could mess up on is a sign, okay? So you're going to have 2 of sum and difference problems. I don't care what angles you use. You can pick whatever ones you want as long as they do truly add up or subtract to get you that certain value, okay? So let's move on to double and half angle. I know those are your favorite. I'm not going to grade the picture on these, so if you draw some wonky picture, I don't really care. I don't really care if the picture's accurate or if it has the correct positive or negative signs in it. If you need a picture, you can draw one. If not, it doesn't really matter, okay? So this question is asking us to find cosine of 2x, and the information that we've been given is sine. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my boundaries based off of what the problem gave me. So I've got pi, which is here, and then I've got 3 pi over 2, which is down here. And if you want to draw the triangle, you're going to connect these two, okay? What you need to check for first before you think about drawing a picture, whatever, is looking at your formula chart and seeing if the formulas that are on there involve the trig function that you were given. So cosine of 2x has 3 different formulas, I think, that I gave you. Let me count. Yeah, you have 3 different formulas that you can use. So the piece of information that I was given was the sine value. So between those 3 formulas, look for the one that only involves sine. And that one looks like this. Because now I don't really have to do any work. All I have to do is substitute the -3/5 in for where I see the sine squared, and that's it. So you're going to have 1 minus 2. I'm going to replace the sine squared with -3/5, and I'm going to square it. If you type that into your calculator, you get 7/25, and that's your answer. So there's no like complicated drawings or anything like that with this problem. So check to see if one of the formulas that you have in your tool bag only involves the trig function that you were given. Okay. Number 4 is going to be a little bit more difficult than that. It is probably going to be extra credit. I haven't decided yet. I think I'm going to see how y'all do, and then I'll make a decision. You are going to need to do a picture here to help you visualize it. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at my boundaries and my trig function, and I'm going to sketch. So 3 pi over 2 is here. 2 pi is here. I'm going to draw my triangle. So if I'm finding sine of x over 2, this is the same thing as sine of 1/2 x, or on your formula chart, it's 1/2 theta. Your formula is plus or minus 1 minus cosine over 2. The trig function that I need to use this formula is cosine, but I don't know what cosine is. So I'm going to use SOHCAHTOA to help me draw my triangle. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And they told us it was negative 12 over 13. So the side, you always start at 0, and then you work your way around until you hit a side. The side that you hit is the adjacent side. The side that's across from the right angle, so going this way, is your hypotenuse. And I knew that was 13 because of my fraction. The other side is the opposite, and that told me that it was at 12. So if you want to put a negative sign on that 12, that's fine. I'm not really going to be too picky about that, so it doesn't really matter. I need to find the missing side. So if you know your Pythagorean triples, there are 2 of them that you need to know. There's 5, 12, and 13, and there's 3, 4, 5. So since I already have 12 and 13, the number that's missing from that triple is 5, so I know the adjacent side is 5. If you don't remember it, you can always use Pythagorean theorem. So you have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A and b are the side lengths, and then c is the hypotenuse. So the side that I was given was 12. So I'm going to have negative 12. So I'm going to have negative 12 squared plus b squared equals 13 squared. I subtract 144 from both sides, I get that b squared is 25, so my b value is 5. Okay, but again, if you know the triples, you don't have to go through that extra step. So I need to figure out what cosine is. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. The adjacent side is 5, and the hypotenuse was 13. Since I'm sitting, this triangle that I drew, this is in quadrant 4. In quadrant 4, your cosine values are going to be positive. So I know that that 5 over 13 is going to be positive. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute. I need to pick if I'm going to take the positive or the negative sign that goes in front of my formula. The way that you do that is by setting up your new boundaries. So when you're looking at the original boundaries that you were given, here you've got the 3 pi over 2 and the 2 pi. Since I'm doing a half angle problem, I have to multiply those boundaries by 1/2. You do not have to do this when you're doing double angle. So like for question 3, when it had the 2x, you don't have to do it for those. You only have to do it for the 1/2. Because you need to figure out if you're going to take the plus or the minus sign that's in front of your formula based on what quadrant your angle sits in. So I'm going to multiply these by 1/2. So this gives me 3 pi over 4. The 2's cancel and you're just left with pi. So if you were looking at this on a coordinate plane, 3 pi over 4 is about here, and then pi is here. So you're sitting somewhere in quadrant 2. In quadrant 2, the trig function that you're trying to find is sine. In quadrant 2, your sine values are positive, so you're going to take that positive sign in front of your formula. I'm just putting the plus for emphasis. You don't really have to write that. Okay, So when you type all of that stuff into your calculator, you're going to get 0.5547, I believe. Let me double check. 1 minus, yep, okay. So that's what you should get when you type that into your calculator. So that decimal is your final answer. I know that number 4 is very difficult, so please try your best to study and to get through as much of it as you can. When you're taking your quiz, don't leave it blank. You need to give me at least some piece of information. I know that you know how to do at least part of the question, so please try your best to get that one taken care of, okay? If you all have any questions, you can ask me before the quiz. You're gonna have the whole quiz to take. You're gonna have the whole class to take the quiz, okay? So good luck and happy studies.